Well, firstly, thank you very much indeed for this invitation to speak. Yeah, it's always, the mythic realm is a subject very close to my heart. So when I was asked to give this talk, I was given a very open brief, and I thought, oh, what do I want to talk about? And I decided I wanted to talk about dreaming as a practice, because I think dreaming does provide, in a way, a bridge to the mythic realm. Joseph Campbell, who some of you may know, the great broadcaster and writer on myth, he said, myths are public dreams, dreams are private myths, which I think is very astute, because the mythic realm and the dream realm coexist and intermingle with each other. And dreams are very significant and important in the Buddhist tradition. You know, there comes up time and time again that the importance of the dream. Some of you may know the Buddha's birth was foretold to his mother in a dream of a white elephant entering her womb. Quite an image. And funnily enough, a white elephant appeared on my Instagram feed just before I was about to give this talk. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah, so the dream appears a lot, and in the Sutra of Golden Light, for example, there's a whole section that you know, most of the sutra sort of comes from a dream, Ridgwikesh's dream in that. And Sangharakshita, the founder of the order, put a lot of store by his dreams. And I found it quite interesting that one of the last pieces of writing that he did before he died was actually about his dreams. And he had a lot of very significant experiences in his dream life. And of course, dreams are something that we all have access to. Occasionally you meet someone and they say, I don't dream, but everyone dreams. It's a very disturbing fact, in the sense that if you don't dream, you go mad, basically. They can, when you dream, you get this thing where your eyes move. You get little twitches in the eyes called rapid eye movement, REM, where the band gets their name from. And this bit of research, basically, every time the people being studied started to experience REM, they were woken up, and after a few days, they actually started to go insane. You start to lose your mind if you stop dreaming. So they really on a very significant for our mental health, really. And I think more than that, because there is a bit of a view of the dream in the West. Well, there's different views, there's different ideas around the dream. One view is this sort of I don't know, it's this sort of rubbish bin. It's where all the sort of psychic kind of rubbish goes, and dreaming is a little bit like going through the bins, sort of around the back of your consciousness. You're kind of rummaging through the bins. And in other traditions, of course, the dreams are very significant. Certainly, as I've said, in the Buddhist tradition, it's very significant. And there's a suggestion that the dream is much more than that. And I rather mischievously titled this talk Living the Dream, because that's obviously a phrase that's quite strong in our culture. But it's one of those phrases that I don't think it's true in a way, because I don't know about you, this expression living the dream. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I was living the dream, I don't know. I'd probably, I don't know, this is quite a scary thought, but I'd probably be naked right now. In fact, some ways I am living the dream, because my computer actually sort of made my talk disappear not long before this. And I don't know about you, but if they're the sort of dreams I have. I have a recurring dream where I'm an opera singer. and I'm on stage, and there's only one small problem: I can't actually sing. So I'm sort of terrified that my big moment is about to come. My big aria is about to come, and I can't actually sing, which is obviously somewhat says something about my levels of anxiety at times. But if I was living the dream, that would be the dream I would be living. And of course, when people use the phrase "living the dream," they're not really referring to living those sorts of dreams. They're actually talking about living out their craving, is really what they're talking about when we talk about living the dream. In fact, I saw a small girl at the weekend, and she had a t-shirt, and written in sequins on the front of her t-shirt was "Dream it, want it, get it," which I thought, if that's a sort of definition of consumerism and materialism, I don't know what is really. So yeah, it's interesting how dream has become very associated with craving, and in some ways, our cravings and our aversions and our fears all do manifest in the dream state. But I do genuinely believe that the dream state reveals so much more than that, so much more than that. And I think in a way the dream actually helps us, because it gives a model of the mind. It helps give a kind of geography of the mind, and it's quite accessible. As Vajrapriya said, I'm a Naga, as it were, and I'm a dweller of the depths at my best. So my models of practice tend to be kind of models of depth. For some people, there's more of a sense of ascent. You talk about higher states of consciousness, or there's a sense of sort of uplift. The models that I respond to tend to sort of go down. They're about deepening, and both are equally true. I mean, it's always worth remembering these things are only metaphors, and they need to be held lightly. So it's important not to take any of these metaphors literally. I mean, a model of expansion is just as true, as it were, of expanding the mind, or deepening the mind, or deepening into the mind. But I do think that the dream gives us a kind of sense of the way things are, in a way, which might sound paradoxical. And I think it does that because dreaming moves us from a kind of solid, fixed sense of self to something much more fluid and much more mysterious. And I think it does this in lots of different ways. And I think the other thing is like the mind can be incredibly petty, and the mind can go all the way to enlightenment, and the dream reflects this. So what do I mean by that? Well, an interesting thing about in the dream state is we experience a kind of fluidity of self. We can experience ourselves as, very much sort of as we are in the world, or we might experience ourselves as an opera singer, or I don't know, or an airplane pilot, or a dolphin, or a man, a woman, an animal. We can shift within the dream. Our kind of perspective can move. We can feel like we're looking down on the scene. We can feel like we're in the scene. So there's this sort of fluidity of self that we experience, that obviously the Dharma says that an idea of a fixed self is an illusion. And the dream really reflects to us that our sense of self, we have the opportunity for that to be a very fluid and movable experience. And that's really important. And I think that starts to kind of, I sometimes think of the mind like, like when you get a piece of blue tack and it's very cold and it's very hard, and it's very unmalleable. And I sometimes think a practice is like sort of working a bit of blue tack to get it soft and get it moving and get it stretching and get it to the extent that this is where the analogy breaks down a bit. That bit of blue tack is like infinitely extendable in all directions, but it starts off as this kind of hard kind of ball bearing, and we slowly kind of loosen it. So in the dream, you can start to get that sense of self kind of being a bit more fluid, a bit more malleable, and we can experience these different perspectives on things. So I think that's very, very important. And the other thing is we experience time in a very particular way in the dream state. Buddhism says that time is a product of consciousness, very clear. And this is one of those bits of Dharma that really goes against, in some ways, our commonsensical experience. And of course, you know, we turn up on time and we get buses and trains and things. So time is important with all these things. We always have to keep our feet on the ground as well. But time is very strange and very mysterious, and we certainly experience this in the dream state. We can feel like we've had these huge adventures, and actually, again, the sort of objective research shows that the dream may be a very short period of time. I mean, I have to say, this is where I may lose some of you. I'm definitely no scholar. This talk comes from my experience, and one of the things I experience is premonitions in my dreams. Now, I really wish that they were really, really significant things, and I could avert disasters and find out the winning lottery numbers or whatever. But my experiences, my premonitions are incredibly banal. They are really, in themselves, they are really, really, really banal. I'll dream of something fairly obscure, and then somehow it'll manifest itself in the day. And like I say, they're not significant. I wish they were, but they're not. But the implications are huge, because the implications suggest that time is a much more mysterious and much more malleable thing than we imagine. I'm not making any claims for myself. I think lots and lots and lots of people have this experience. But it's the implications of it that I think are really important. Yeah, time is much more mysterious, it's much more fluid, it's much more flexible than we imagine. So that's one aspect that the dream suggests about the nature of mind, is that time is flexible. Our self is flexible and time is flexible. Now, and also spatially, you know, we can have this experience of really experience kind of vast experiences of space and a moving around of space that again, it suggests that our notion of space is very fluid and flexible. And sometimes in dreams we can fly and we can do things that we can't do in waking life. So yeah, space is very, very flexible in the dream state. I think the other thing about the dream is it's close to the realm of death. This is very, very traditional, that the dream state is close to the realm of death. In fact, one of the 6 bardos from the Tibetan tradition, these intermediate states, is the dream bardo. So the dream is considered to be very similar, as it were, in very similar territory to death. And a lot of us can experience this, can't we? We often meet the dead in our dreams, and I find it very, very strong when the dead appear. It does feel more than the product of my consciousness. Certainly when my parents appear in my dreams, it's a very strong experience. And weirdly, it feels like I've got this ongoing relationship with them. I have no idea where that fits in with the notion of rebirth. I won't even begin, but there's something mysterious going on there. I think one thing I've learned from practice is life and the universe is weirder than we will ever imagine. I think that is kind of rule number one, is if you think you understand it, you don't. Life is weird. Life is very, very strange. And it doesn't fit into lots of neat and tidy categories. And I know it's actually interesting, Sangharakshita, he had a very strong dream about, he felt he had a whole past life experience in one of his dreams, looking down on himself, dying. And I know other people who've had those kind of past life experiences, and they are very strong. And there is a sense of, again, this sort of fluid, mysterious nature of consciousness. Very strange, because I mean, when it's happened to me, it's like you're looking at yourself and you're not looking at yourself at the same time. It's you and it's not you. It's almost like you're the parent of this being. They're not the same, just as we're not our mothers, but in a way, we're created by our mothers, aren't we? We're created by our parents, but we're not them, and we are them. And most of us know, as the older we get, the more and more we turn into our parents. I certainly do. That's definitely my experience. They're definitely here and in me. So yeah, the dream, I think, really takes us close to the realm of the dead. It takes us close to the realm of death. And dreaming, in the Tibetan tradition, is kind of almost like a rehearsal for death. If you read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, as it's commonly known, it's very, very dreamlike, very, very dreamlike. That this suggestion that the experience after death is this kind of strange dreamlike state that the dreaming during our lives kind of prepares us for. Yeah, it's very interesting. In fact, in some ways, the whole of the Mahayana is like some very fantastical dream. These extraordinary kind of worlds and places and multitudes and time and space doing very, very strange things. And I think, again, it suggests the real kind of great mystery of consciousness, really, of the mind. And as you can see, it's like mind is becoming more and more kind of fluid, because in the Tibetan tradition, there's this suggestion that you can actually become enlightened in the dream state. They have a whole series of practices called dream yoga, where you basically you do a series of practices that allow you to become conscious while dreaming, and you experience what's known as lucid dreaming. Some of you may have known about this, and some of you may have experienced this. And in lucid dreaming, you basically you wake up in the dream. You're still in the dream, but your sort of waking consciousness and the dream consciousness kind of coalesce. I went through a phase. I lived at the Gupaloka Retreat Centre up in the mountains in Spain, funnily enough at the same time as Prakasha, about 20 years ago, and it was a very intense period of practice for me. And during that time, I began to have lucid dreams, and I've lost the ability since. I haven't had lucid dreams since, but it's a very strange experience. My experience was you sort of wake up, but it's like it's almost like you're pushed, you're kind of almost pushing against something, or you're walking through treacle, or for other people it's very fluid, but for my experience there was a lot of kind of resistance. And I think there is something about the dream state that is which is actually sort of objective. I had the most, I'm going to reveal rather a lot about myself in this talk. I may regret having it recorded, but anyway. In one particular dream I had, where now there's a golden rule about dreaming. I should have said this at the beginning, where you really need to approach the dream state with reverence and respect. And the Tibetans think that the laws of karma function in the dream state. So it's very, very important that in the dream state you behave ethically. Particularly if you're lucid, you still need to behave ethically, and you need to have the utmost respect for the autonomy of the beings you meet in the dream state. And it's considered very, very, very bad form to question the reality of any being in the dream state if you're lucid. Now, being young and foolish, I was lucid in a dream, and I was talking to somebody, and I was arguing with them, and I was telling them that they weren't real, that they were just a dream. And this is considered like the one thing you do not do. You do not do this in the dream state. And I went as far, this is a confession actually, I went as far as to say, look, I'm going to prove to you you're not real. And I went to poke my finger through their chest. I literally went to poke my finger through their chest. And I woke up in agony, as if I had just touched a 1,000-volt electric cable. It was the most extraordinary experience. It was like I'd touched an electric cable, and I was physically kind of shaking and in a lot of pain. So take it from me, do not question the reality of beings in the dream state. It doesn't end well. It really, really doesn't end well. And I think this points to us having a sense of humility, a sense of respect, a sense of understanding that there are other realms of existence that live by a different set of rules to our worldly existence. That might sound a bit woo-woo to some of you, but I think it is. Most cultures, it's just considered what's normal. The dream state does point to how the universe is. We live in and the Dharma says this, and the Buddha says this time and time again. The Buddha is in no way a scientific materialist. The Buddha lived in a multi-level, multi-dimensional universe where there are all sorts of non-human spirits and beings and entities. And again, the dream state suggests this. It suggests a certain autonomy. We're actually entering a realm that's beyond ourselves as well. It is the kind of refuse of our psyche in some ways, and it points to something else. I think the dream state's a little bit like a collage. If you've ever, got a load of magazines and you've cut out pictures and you've rearranged them and you've created, and in a way that's what the dream does. We use the kind of images and experience of our waking life, but they are rearranged, they are recollaged, and sometimes that's quite banal. But also, I think there's this movement. There can be a movement towards more and more subtle ways of being, which suggest that you, as the Tibetans believe, that you can actually go all the way to enlightenment. And we are entering, or we can enter, the archetypal realm. We can enter the mythic realm where these archetypes have a life of their own. I think of it a little bit like imagining these huge currents and tides we have in the sea. There are like these sort of currents or streams in the mind, these kind of patterns that move, that are the archetypes that all mythology points towards. And these streams, if we can kind of engage with them, there can become a kind of dialogue. And I'm sure we've all had them. When we have a significant dream, it's like we've touched on these deeper currents in our minds. We've touched, and they can give us the most extraordinary gifts. I'll say more about that in a moment, but if we're responsive to them, there can be real gold down there which is offered up to us. There's a lovely story about the Nagas, funnily enough, offering up gold from the depths of a lake to a meditating Padmasambhava. And this, I think, is what the Tibetans are pointing to when they talk about the fact that you can actually get enlightened in the dream state if you're lucid enough. There can be a fluidity of being, a subtlety of mind that can actually open you up and sort of take you all the way, as it were. So I think of it as you sort of go down through the depths, it's almost like we reach a point where all our consciousnesses intermingle and interconnect. Another experience I've had, again, it might sound like quite grand and quite woo-woo, but I think it's perfectly normal in some ways, that I've certainly had the experience where I'm sleeping in close proximity to someone. I used to live in a Buddhist community. Funny, I used to have it when I lived in a Buddhist community, and I shared a room with another man. And I'd wake up in the morning and I think, why the hell was I dreaming about that? Where did that come from? And then I'd go, we had a bit of a thing that one of us would make, whoever was up first would make the tea, and you'd come back and my friend would tell me an experience that they'd had the previous night that was obviously in their consciousness, that somehow I picked up on, that somehow their consciousness and my consciousness had started to kind of merge or mingle. And this can happen with it can happen in physical close proximity, but it can also happen over great distances, I think, with a deep emotional connection with someone. You can start to merge in the dream state, which again I think really points to the fluidity of mind, how our kind of singular fixed view of self starts to really break down in the dream state. And I think it's really, really helpful for having an experience of the theory in a way. So I'll just say a little bit about working with dreams. It's a huge subject, working with dreams. Very basic thing. I think it is really a very helpful practice to reflect on your dreams each morning if you can, or in the night if you wake up after them. Just bring them to mind. A good little tip if you're struggling to remember your dream is if you roll back over into the position where you normally sleep, it can help with recollecting dreams. That can really help. And the other thing that's very helpful is if you can remember a little detail, just really focus. If that's all you can remember, just really focus in on a little detail. And it can become a bit like getting the end of a thread, and you can actually, it can reveal the entire sort of garment if you can really focus on some detail. That can be a very, very helpful way of recollecting the dream. And when you're reflecting on dreams, the first thing you should do is never, ever, ever refer to a dream dictionary. Don't ever refer to a dream dictionary. This idea that, you know, you dream of a dog. I saw this once in a dream dictionary. Dogs are loyalty. I said this in a talk recently I did. Well, dogs, of course, can be very, very loyal. They can also be mean as hell. They can bite you. They can run around in circles. They can chase sticks. They can chase their own tails. you can't assign things a meaning. It's what your relationship is to the thing that appears in your dream, and you've got to really sit with the image. Yeah, James Hillman, the psychologist, talks about staying with the image. Really try and stay with the image. Don't try and let it speak. Let it speak its own language, because dreams speak the language of the heart. I find it very interesting that we dream with our entire body. We don't just dream with our heads, we dream with our entire body. And dreams, as it were, come more from the heart than the head. And the heart speaks in languages. That's why myth affects us so much, is because it's the language of image, it's the language of symbol, and dream speaks the same language. And you kind of have to learn a different language with dreams. And dream dictionaries are a sort of colonialism in a way. It's this sort of, we're going to go to this sort of mysterious other realm, and we're going to start labeling everything and nailing it down, and we're going to bring the sort of waking mindset to the dream state. Very, very important. We bring a sense of reverence, of respect for the locals. You want to learn their language if you can. You want to learn some of the local customs. You know, at least please and thank you, and 2 coffees, please. Will probably go a long way. But yeah, you enter you reflect on your dreams in a way that has a certain respect and reverence and lightness and multiple perspective. Don't nail the dream down. View it from different angles. What is the dream trying to say? Another good little tip is approach the dream that everything in the dream has your own best interests at heart. The monster chasing you down the corridor might be trying to tell you something really important. I don't know if you've had, I had this experience recently. I was walking down the road, and you know, this, as happens, this nutter starts shouting at. This happened in real life. This nutter starts shouting at me, and I'm like, oh no! And I'm like, keep your head down, keep walking, keep your head down, and eventually, he just wouldn't stop, and he started to almost chase after me, and I was like, oh no! And then of course I turn around, and he's going, mate, you dropped your credit card, and but there's a moral in there, of course. But I think it's worth kind of the dream quite often is metaphorically telling you you've dropped your credit card, and it's worth kind of turning around and listening, because you never know what the dream is trying to communicate to you. Because I do think the dream is trying to communicate often something very significant. Now, there's a lot more I could say about working with dreams, but I'm conscious of the time. That might have to wait for another time. But because I do want to say something about, before I conclude, about literally living the dream. W.B. Yeats had this famous phrase, in dreams begin responsibilities. In dreams begin responsibilities. And I do think we need, very importantly, to let the dream inform our waking life. We need to have the humility to listen to our dreams, and to honor them and respect them. I mean, sometimes, you know, if something significant appears in the dream, maybe someone you've not thought of for a long time, or, you know, maybe write them a letter, send them an email. If I don't know, someone who's died appears, visit their grave, put them in the Metabhavna. Just connect the dream to your waking life, and a real kind of magic can happen if we do that. There's a real, it's a very hard thing to describe, but it's like this sort of communication happens between our waking life and our nighttime life. And I've actually, personally, I've made some really big decisions based on dreams. You know, I've had I've had some very significant dream images, and they felt like the equivalent of being handed the credit card. You know, someone's told me something important. They've told me something that I really need to do. And interestingly, I can think of one particular example where in the dream I was having my teeth pulled. I was having one of my teeth pulled out to allow my wisdom teeth to come through, to allow the space. So as you can imagine, not a lot of subtlety in that. Interesting thing about the dream state is dreams love a really bad pun. It's always worth remembering that. Dreams love a really bad pun. They're sometimes incredibly unsubtle. So yes, in this dream, I was having my teeth pulled out to allow my wisdom teeth to come through, and I was faced with a big decision at the time, and I thought, well, I need to do it to allow my wisdom teeth to come through, allow my wisdom to grow. So I decided to do it, and what I chose to do was incredibly difficult. It was really, really hard, and I doubted for quite a long time afterwards whether it was the wise thing to do. And it was only years later that I realized that it was all in the dream, that actually it literally felt, that period of my life felt like having teeth pulled. It really did. It felt like having my teeth pulled. So I think it's worth remembering that the dream state living the dream can often be really hard and quite difficult. It could be meaningful and very, very important and very significant, but it's not sipping cocktails by a swimming pool in the Pacific somewhere. It can actually be really hard. And if only I'd really listened to that dream a bit more fully, maybe I wouldn't have acted, but I would have maybe been a little wiser about how difficult the path I was choosing. So I think it is very important to take your dreams seriously, to reflect on them. There's lots of different ways to do that, and yeah, it's important to remember them because they can just give you very, very interesting psychological information. They just tell us about ourselves, who we are, because we may have all sorts of ideas about ourselves, don't we? I'm a good Buddhist. I do this, I do that. You know, there's no hatred in me. There's no violence in me. There's no dishonesty in me. I live by the precepts. And then you wake up from a dream where you've been lying and stealing and cheating and being unkind, and maybe this only refers to me. I don't know, but certainly my dream self can reflect back to me that my mind is perhaps not quite as pure as I like to imagine it is sometimes. So it can be like looking in the mirror. The dream can give us some very basic information about who we are and what's going on in lives. And I think there can be real gifts in the dream, real gifts in the dream that do come from beyond, as it were. I mean, ultimately, our mind is infinite and expansive. So in one way, it isn't from beyond ourselves. It's only from the limited self's experience that it feels like it's beyond us. But in reality, it's merely the expansiveness of mind, this sense of otherness, this sense of being given a gift, really. And it can help coming back into the waking state. I mean, the Diamond Sutra, for one, says about treating existence as like being a dream. It's important not to take that too literally. If anyone ever says to me, it's all an illusion, I'm rather tempted to give them a kick in the shins, to be honest with you. That's not literally, but yeah, you know, life is, there's pain, there's suffering, there's a reality to physical existence, but it is much more fluid and much stranger and much weirder and much more mysterious than we'll ever imagine. So that's a very, very, very quick whistle-stop tour of my experience of dreaming. Like I say, there's much more to say about that. So should we just have a short, very short little guided meditation, and we'll kind of maybe have a little bit of a experiential sense of this, maybe just for 15 minutes or so, and then we'll have some questions after that. So yeah, so if you like, if you want to take your meditation posture, do, but if you're just sitting in a chair or something, just make yourself comfortable. It's just going to be 15 minutes or so. So as I said, we might like to close your eyes. Take a few deeper breaths. I like to really feel the breath a bit deeper in the body. Down through the heart center to the belly. As I said, we dream with our whole bodies. You could say, in a way, we dream with the heart. We dream with our heart rather than the head. In my experience, the imagination, the realm of dreaming, the realm of myth, is in the body. It's not separate from the body. We literally need to live the dream in and through the body. And as you sit with your physical experience, you may have a sense of internal sort of spaciousness. That the body's a vessel for experience. Or a home, or a house, or a cave, or a cathedral. body is a space. Maybe it's a planet or even a universe. Maybe it's a starry sky at night. That may be experienced visually, may just be a felt sense or a feeling. Some people are more visual than others. Doesn't matter. We all experience ourselves in the world differently. Within that interior space, that's both of the body and not of the body, of the imagination and of our physical felt sense. You might like to, in some way, imagining an experience of deepening. Maybe you're climbing down a ladder, walking down a set of steps, a spiral staircase. Being lowered down in a basket. Floating down a river, going down. Any sort of experience of deepening. You may also experience that of through a sense of contraction. Maybe you find yourself in a cave or a tunnel. Maybe you experience it as an opening, an expanding outwards. Maybe there's space down there. Just hold it lightly. This is just playing. Just bring a child's-like sense to this. There's no getting it right, no getting it wrong. You can always just come back to the breath. Just experiencing the breath, entering the body, deepening down, expanding the belly. Possibly even flowing down through the legs. might like just to dwell a little in this space. And if it works for you, maybe you can now take a look around. Maybe an image forms or presents itself, an object or a scene, a memory, physical experience, a sensation. Is there a sense of something calling for you? Something that would appreciate being noticed, given some kindly attention, some love, some awareness. Do you experience any sort of distress or discomfort? Just come back to the breath, a gentle, kindly, loving awareness. I'd like to look for some sense of openness in your experience, care, gentleness, expansion. A dream may present itself to you, a memory of a dream or a recurring dream. There's always the breath, almost like a handrail to hold on to. A bridge, a ladder. You might like to, in your imagination, or even with your body. Just offer a little bow, a thank you, a sense of respect and gratitude, a sense of appreciation. And if you find it helpful, climb back up the stairs, the ladder, be raised in a basket. But just begin a slow ascent. You might like to experience the breath a little bit higher in the body. Chest or the heart center. In the throat. When you're ready, you might like to open your awareness out. Maybe begin with any sound around you. Gently returning to the space you find yourself in. You might like to open your eyes and look around. When you're ready, maybe there's an image or an experience that you've returned with that you might like to reflect on and dwell upon in the coming days. You might like to explore it. Run it between your fingers. You might like to take a few breaths. Maybe just take a few big sighs outwards. Or wiggle your fingers and your toes. Make a few small movements. Take a look around. Take it gently.